You all ready out there? Here we go.
I'm ready.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. And that what you just heard is a song called What Are You Doing the Rest of Your Life? And it was written by Michel Legrand in 1969. And it was written for a movie called The Happy Ending. I think that is one of the most beautiful tunes ever written. You know, it's only 50 years old. Normally I play a lot older than that, but I wanted to get that out this morning because I just played it on the gig yesterday I was on. So there we go. Now, where do you go on the internet or on TV and you want to watch an interview and a guy comes on and starts playing a horn and plays a song 50 to 100 years old? I'll tell you where you go. Right here, Life After Scientology, and I'm your host, Ron Miscavige. So good morning to all of you. I have a very special treat for you today, which you are going to enjoy. But let me get a little bit of business out of the way. And these are some people who became patrons. And that's Scott Mundorf for $5. Scott, I thank you very much. That's very nice of you. And then we have, I think it's pronounced, and don't murder me for if I'm saying it wrong, Johan or Johan, I would say Johan Strauss for $8. So Johan, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right, my friend. Anyway, thank you very much. Okay, so let me just put my horn away. Now, listen to this. Do you recognize that? I'm sure a lot of you do. That was the music that went under the Dianetics, the Modern Science of Mental Health ad on television. And I don't know how many millions of views that had. But I have with me this morning the gentleman whom, with his co-partner, Chris Maney, wrote that theme. Not only that, this guy, here's the bio. Look at this. That's 2 pages he sent me. I said, Chris, I'm going to spend half the show telling them all the things you did. So let's just get into it as we get along. He wrote stuff for Chicago Fire, Game of Thrones, you name it. So please, this morning, welcome a very special artist, a composer, and we're going to take up a subject that's never been taken up before. Please welcome Geoff Levin. Good morning, Geoff.
Morning, Ron. I really liked your rendition of that film song.
Yeah, it was a film song, and it's what are you doing the rest of your life? Geoff, I'm going to tell you, between me and you, I don't think a lot of bands play it for only one reason. It's a hard song to listen to and play by ear because of the middle part, what we would in music call the bridge. The changes in it are so unique, but so beautiful. I think a lot of guys would try it, didn't get it, and so they gave up on it. But I love it, though.
Yeah, no, it's great for you to open the show with that.
Well, Geoff,
So
I'm
yeah,
turning it over to you because I know we could start with your bio, and I, I will tell you, there's uh, let's start it off this way. Geoff was introduced to Scientology in 1963, and you were in it for like 50 years, Geoff.
yeah,
How,
yeah. I checked on the yeah. There's a website where they show how all the people who've left and how long were they were in, and I'm in a pretty rare group because hardly anybody I know stayed in for that long.
I don't know of anybody, but I was in over 40, but not 50. But what was the circumstances? How did you get in, Geoff? I'd like to just start the show with that. I think
Okay, if you want to hear it. Um, I was in the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area, hanging out with my mentor, music mentor, David Nelson. He was a musician who played with Jerry Garcia. And I was hanging out with him. He was older than me, so he was like, took me under his wing. And him and a guy named Rick Melrose, who's still around, introduced me to marijuana and the touch assist in the same night, or the contact assist. Contact assist is an assist that you learn in Scientology when you have an injury. And so they taught me about that Scientology concept as I was getting high.
a little bit
so,
unique, but hey, what the hell? It worked. Yeah.
so this is 1963, late 63, and they gave me a book by Ray Kemp, and who was very big in Scientology and had written a book about Scientology and his abilities. And so I took that and I embraced the one technique, and they told me about a certain spiritual aspect of Scientology, which involves what they call the spirit is called the Thetan. And they taught me that. And I walked away from it believing it. I thought, this makes sense to me. Now, I didn't actually join Scientology until 1968.
Wow.
At that time, the band that I was in, People, we were a real popular band in San Jose. We were having the typical problems bands have. And one of the members was late to rehearsal, and he walked in and said, "I saw a bumper sticker that said, 'Call me about Scientology.'" And he didn't know anything about it, but it triggered that earlier experience I had with David Nelson and Rick Melrose. And so I went, "Where is it?" And it turned out it was in a suburb of San Jose, kind of outskirts, but it was close. And I went down that day, got a lecture from the mission holder. Chick Chiclacos was at the time the mission holder, and I signed up. That was it.
Wow.
So it was like in 68, it was instant. And I was the leader of my band, and my brother was in the band. I brought him, I brought the drummer, and of course, Albert Ribisi as well. And so the four of us pretty much were in. We
Now, wait
didn't,
a minute. Wait, you say Albert Ribisi? Does that have anything to do with Giovanni Ribisi?
that's Giovanni Ribisi's dad, Albert.
How about that? And by the way, that band you mentioned, didn't you guys have a hit at that time?
The group was called People, and in about 1968, the album started climbing the Billboard charts around March, and it took off. And yes, it was a hit. And the band members in that group were Albert Ribisi, who was a good friend of my brother Robbie Levin, and then Denny Fridkin, the drummer. And then we had two lead singers, Gene Mason and Larry Norman. So they were later to the group, a little bit later, and but they weren't interested in Scientology. They were both Christian.
Mm-hmm.
So they didn't want to join, but we became zealots. I would call it, you have those little packages of vitamins,
Yeah.
that are fizzy. You put them like emergency.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
You put it in the water and boom, it's drinkable. Well, I think that we got little packs of instant zealot, and because within 2 weeks, my brother and I in particular were zealots.
Yeah.
That's all the only word I can say. We were
Listen, I understand totally, because that's what happened to me when I got in. Yeah, I never used that word, but it's a good one. I was a zealot.
yeah, well, I didn't really think about, I actually thought about that even when I was still in Scientology, that I became a little bit overzealous.
Yeah. No.
And that ended up, I think, destroying our group.
Yeah.
Because we were having the hit record called I Love You. I don't know if I said that. The song's called I Love You.
Mm-hmm.
And we covered a zombie record. That was a B-side of a zombie record. And so anyway, that was climbing the charts. And they're setting up a tour for us. I mean, this was a big record. And we were going to tour in the summer. And we knew that. And we kicked one of the members of the band out of the group.
Wow.
And here's the deal. He was irreplaceable. He was on that record and he sang a key line on the record, and we didn't have time to find another singer. And honestly, there was no other singer who could do it.
Wow.
So we went on tour and we didn't support our record because we couldn't perform it the way it was supposed to be done.
That's interesting. That's wild.
So anyway, that was my start in Scientology.
I'll tell you, and this is going to lead us right into what I really want to get into, and we spoke about this before this interview. Obviously, I speak to my people I'm going to interview. I get their bullet points and everything, and we're talking. I'd like to bring this up because I think this is worth taking up at maybe length, because Geoff has literally a list of people, of Scientologists, musicians who have died. Now, I'm not saying, and I don't think he's saying, that Scientology killed them. It's not the point.
No.
But there is a common thread that kind of runs through all of these, even though their circumstances of dying is different. And that common thread is what Geoff kind of has a handle on. And I want to take it up. And it's over to you right now, my friend. And let's get into this.
Okay. I just wanted to check something. I'm on screen now because I'm not seeing the change.
No, you're on screen when you're talking. I see you.
Okay. Okay, good. Great. Okay. Yeah. Just wanted to double check.
Can you see yourself when you're on screen when you're talking?
No, it doesn't shift. I see you. It stays the same.
Hey, Sean?
Just want to make sure.
He's not seeing himself on his screen when we shift over.
No, I don't. I see myself, but I'm in a little box.
You're like in a little icon thing?
Yeah, I'm below, and then I see you.
Okay, well, then Sean said, that's my producer. He said it's your iPad. So
no problem. Okay, good. As long as you're working on that's what.
Yeah.
One of the things that I observed over the years was that the way Scientology is set up.
Hang on a second. Okay, go on, Geoff.
There's two issues. One became more apparent to me when I was out of Scientology. And then one was apparent to me when I was in Scientology. And I actually did a program that I thought would improve, especially Celebrity Center, how they deal with music artists. I had written a whole program. And I was trying to get it implemented at Celebrity Center in Los Angeles. And that was, Scientology is antipathetic to the whole lifestyle thought process of music artists. And I say music artists because that covers everybody. It covers singers, it covers trumpet players, it covers guitar players, covers, I think, lyricists, anybody, anybody involved in music. It
Right.
could be a producer, an engineer, all of us. There's a certain dedication that we have to our art.
I'm going to tell you something. That, even though it's a short statement, that's a mouthful. I've been playing professionally since I'm 13 years old, and I have a passion for it that, hey, I'm 83 now. We're talking, I've been playing 70 years, and my desire to do that never dies. I absolutely enjoy it all the time. Go on, Geoff.
So here's what I saw. I did some breakdowns of the uniqueness of music artists. And that's a group where you're a loner. In certain respects, you have to, on your own, you have to spend that time. You can't get around it because in music, you're judged by your product pretty much alone. It's not a social thing. It's if you can't play,
Yeah.
you can't write, people are going to know it right away.
Yep.
If you're a songwriter, they're going to listen to your song and they're going to go, ho hum, or they're going to go, oh my God, I cried.
Yeah.
And then they're going to pay attention to you. So this kind of dedication, the Scientology way of controlling people is you're on a schedule. You have to be here 5 days a week to be on a course, or you have to be here all weekend. Well, how's a music person going to be there all weekend? He's probably playing on the weekend. He probably has to practice before he plays.
Yeah.
And so I was going to suggest they have a special schedule for music artists. Maybe they're open late, because a lot of music artists, they're up late.
Yeah.
They don't really get going until noon or something. So this right away, just on a very nuts and bolts kind of a situation or platform, doesn't work. And so one of the things that happens is artists don't like schedules. They like schedules of where they have to be to play. That's about it.
Yeah.
Or practice. And they don't like that either. It's like, and we're brought up that way. We're brought up to be loners, because every musician, everybody who studies, whether you're an arranger, composer, you had to put the hours in, and hours of study on your own, of practice on your own.
Yeah.
So by nature, we are rebellious. We don't want to be controlled. So that's why bands have such a tough time.
You're right, because I know that I have to practice. It doesn't matter how many years I play. I've got to put in that time. And look, there may be times when I think of it, I don't want to do it, but I make myself do it. These are good points, Geoff. I got to tell you, man.
So we're alone a lot. And then now we're introduced to a group where that's not necessarily practical for the group. They want you with the program. And the first course I did in Scientology, which was the course that sold me, was the communications course, where you learn how to communicate.
Right.
And there's some good stuff in there. Hubbard was very smart, though, or clever in making that the first course, because it's very practical. Everyone wants to communicate better.
Yep.
The one thing that he put in it, though, which was this was told to me by, I think, somebody online. I think it was John Atack or somebody pointed out to me that the first drill you do is you close your eyes and you sit across from another person.
Right.
Now, he said, if you go for that and you're willing to trust really perfect strangers, you're walking into a new organization, and you're gonna close your eyes for an extended period of time, knowing you don't even know these people, and trust that they got you.
Mm.
It's just like that. They got you. Because now you have trusted that they're not going to do any harm to you. You're just sitting there vulnerable. And that drill is absolutely unnecessary in the communication course.
Wow. I never thought about that.
I didn't either till somebody pointed it out to me, and I realized, oh boy, they
Yeah.
had me. From that point on, I was just so trusting. And that's how you can get them, because in the communication course, it actually has some good drills that you learn about communication.
Oh, well, Geoff, let me tell you something. That was the course that sold me that no matter what they told me, it would be good because I had great gains from the communication course. Not that I was a bad communicator, but it sharpened my skills and I was better at communicating after doing that course. So that gave me confidence that everything they told me from there on was going to be good.
Absolutely. Well, that's what got me,
Yeah.
and it got the other guys too.
Yeah.
So when I got out of Scientology, I was very conscious of that I had been programmed.
Right.
And I have to give a shout out right now to Tony Ortega, because I stumbled onto his blog on the Village Voice, and that got me thinking.
Yeah.
And then Mike Rinder for his dedicated work in bringing so much truth out in his blog.
Yeah.
So I became an avid reader, and then I had this realization, which I don't think too many people have stated, that Hubbard consciously he took truth that he had lifted from other earlier philosophers and writers, then he would insert his control mechanism point.
Listen, I agree with that. As a matter of fact, I am reading the works of those philosophers of the late 1800s, early 1900s.
Mm-hmm.
There are things in there that you literally could cut and paste from their book and put it in Scientology. And that's what Hubbard did and used it. But he put a different twist on it in almost every case.
Well, he did kind of simplify it or make it a little more understandable for us,
Yeah.
for where we were, where society was,
Yeah.
certainly in the United States and in England. That became my kind of crusade to find within the technology those things that were lies that had been put there specifically to control us.
Wow.
And so I actually made a point, and this is germane to the story about how my band basically was shut down by us being in Scientology. And we were called a one-hit wonder because we pretty much crashed and burned after we kicked out Larry Norman was his name, the lead singer. But I actually, when I was mentally out of Scientology, I wasn't physically out of Scientology. So I was under the radar. And I decided I'm going to go back into the lion's den and be on course. I'm going to study the most current course and see it and really be objective and see what they're teaching people now. This was, like several years ago. And the golden age of tech 2 had come out, so all the courses were different. you had to redo all the courses. And so I went back and did the course that deals with shattering suppression. It's called the PTS-SP course. I went on course. That's a big course. I had been on the course before, and I had a 3-year period where I had illness, both physical and mental illness. So I had been off course, but I went back on it, got the new check sheet, and was studying it just to see what this course and this concept about suppressives and disconnection seems to be one of the biggest, most important control mechanisms in Scientology. And I know you and I both have issues with being disconnected from our sons and daughters. So, but this was a key thing in why we kicked the band member out. And so I was really on that course to really learn it and to look for what did he insert in there that wasn't true.
Yeah.
So I don't know if anybody's talked about this on your show.
No, they haven't. And I would appreciate you going on because you got my interest too here.
Well, this was a brand new, this course has been, and this part of the technology has pretty much been the same since I joined. And the key to it is that what's drummed into us is that there has to be a person or group that we are connected to that is suppressive to us, repressive to us.
Right.
That is the key point. Completely, it has to be there. And if we veer from that, they steer us back. Okay, who is it? Or what group is it? Who are you connected to? You know, and so that was the same on that course a few years ago when it was now the new course as it was in 1968.
Wow.
Now here's the interesting thing. It's a big fat lie, in my opinion. You don't have to be connected to any suppressive person to have the problem of having difficulties, or what they'd say PTS, which is a roller coaster.
Yeah.
Potential trouble source, which means supposedly you are connected to a person who is suppressive or suppressive to you, and they don't see much difference. And this huge course is about getting you to recognize who these people are. The lie is, and Hubbard verified this in lecture to review auditors, Hubbard told the truth, which he often did. And the truth was that you could be in that roller coaster condition for 5 minutes or 50 years, but it's nothing more than a present time problem. In other words, it's a problem that exists 24/7. You haven't resolved it. And that's causing you to have this up and down issue because it's in your head all the time.
I see.
And he also gave a way of handling that. But it wasn't disconnect. He put the disconnection on so that people had a quick way of handling it. Handling human relationships not easy. Now, just because your mother doesn't like Scientology and she sees through it, doesn't mean she's a suppressive.
Of course not.
Just because your band member doesn't want to do it and is acting, you know, he's kind of being snarky and he just doesn't want to be bugged anymore, and that's the way he's dealing with it, is being snarky, doesn't mean that he is covertly hostile because he is an evil person. So I embraced that technology, and we targeted our lead singer as the repressive, suppressive person.
Wow.
And therefore, we could not handle him because he didn't want to be in.
So you then decided to disconnect from him by kicking him out.
Yes, so we decided to, and can you imagine how stupid that is? You're having a hit record. The two frontmen who make the sound of your band, you're going to kick out one of them who has the key sound of that hit record.
Yeah. Listen, you say it's stupid, but Geoff, as long as I've known you, there has not been 1 second where I thought you were stupid. But I can absolutely see the state of mind that you were in by this being drummed into you, as it was to me. I experienced the same thing, not maybe with the results or the repercussions of an act that resulted from being in that state of mind, but I could see how you would do that after being brainwashed in that way.
Well, let's I guess it would be the ignorance of the young.
Okay.
I was at the time 23 when I joined. That's still pretty young.
Yeah, that's true.
And so I embraced that, and that concept, if we look at those who are still in, that is the big lie.
Yeah, and
They
it goes on all the time.
and Hubbard had to do it because he needed a way to keep his followers loyal and unwilling to listen to the critics and people who saw through what he was doing. And they were whistleblowers, the early ones.
Yeah,
Like Jerry Armstrong. Respect the guy. He
yeah,
saw it, he stood up for it, and then he became an evil, horrible, despicable individual.
yeah. Isn't that
And,
wild?
and so now I'm in that category.
Well,
Now,
okay, and I take back what I said. I think it was a stupid thing to do.
yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It was
I mean,
stupid.
all things considered, what I meant is you're not a stupid person, but that was a stupid thing to do, which is a big difference between saying a person is stupid. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I mean,
No, I agree.
you know,
Well, it killed our band. It
it,
killed our momentum. To do more records and to become a well-known band.
well,
Uh,
there's an old saying, you cut off your nose to spite your face, but you did it unknowingly. You just did it because you thought it was the right thing to do, right?
well, I thought, yeah, well, it's based on fear,
Yeah.
and of course, Scientology and Hubbard was very conscious of that. Of how that's part of control
Oh, yeah.
is to make people fearful.
Yep.
I do want to get a plug in. Um, in 2018, I pulled the band back together, apologized to the non-Scientology members that were still alive,
Wow.
and we're just about done with recording a brand new album
Unbelievable.
for people, and it was really fun. 50 years later, right?
Yeah.
I'm a record producer. I'm an engineer. I'm a songwriter. And so I could do it without a huge budget and still know that we're getting a good sound.
Plus, you're a musician on it too, aren't you?
Well, yeah, I'm the guitar player and keyboard player right now, but
Um,
I am going to bring in a few guests, I think, to perform on it.
could you do
Um,
me a favor, please? When that comes out, make a phone call to me and then I'll announce it on the show. I'll plug it for you, buddy.
oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, we're still a ways away, but there's um, the album is for those people who donated to our album. Thank you, because we did do an Indiegogo.
Okay.
It's going to be longer than I thought to release it because another plug, um, a filmmaker that I've been working with for almost 20 years, the director Richard Friedman, um, is directing our documentary about my brother and I growing up in San Jose, how we worked with these great musicians. Like I played with Garcia in his bluegrass band a little bit. And I took lessons from Jorma Kaukonen and Paul Kantner, who were in the Jefferson Airplane. And we hung out with Big Brother and the Holding Company, with Janis Joplin. We
Wow.
opened for Janis Joplin at one point. So there's all that early musical history, and then getting into Scientology and all that history. And then my brother and I were separated for 28 years.
Wow.
I disconnected from him.
Okay. Now, I'm going to interject a little point
Yeah.
because I think I know that you actually joined the Sea Organization at one point and went to the ship. Could you just delve into that? Just give us the flavor, because you worked right with L. Ron Hubbard, right?
Yes. No, I worked with Ron for about 3 months, pretty much every day.
Okay, well, I'd love to hear it, and I'm sure our audience would. And then, but I want to get into your take on these various musicians who've died after that.
Oh yeah. Well,
But no, let's do this first, because I want to make sure we get this in. This interests me, because I know Tommy, a fellow musician when I was in the Sea Org, mentioned about you leaving, and he remembered that L. Ron Hubbard shook your hand and wished you the best.
not quite the way it was.
Okay, well, then we
Let me
can
tell you, and I have the documentation to show you how I left. But let me just say that I had major respect for Sea Org members. Once in '68, I got in and I wanted to go clear, which was a very high state in Scientology. And so we were in LA because our record company was there, and I visited the Advanced Organization of Los Angeles and met these dedicated Sea Org members. There's a picture, I wish we could flash these things on, of my band with the staff of AOLA,
Yeah.
the Advanced Org. But anyway, I became friends with them. We were celebrities. We were the first band that I know of to play at an org for an org event.
Wow.
And that was the LA org. Julia Salmon was the ED, or the executive director. We played for the Los Angeles org in 1968. Of course, her comment, because she was like at the time, like probably 65, "You're too loud. You're too loud. Turn it down."
Yeah.
Now, all the younger staff were they were in seventh heaven. They were having so much fun. But anyway, so we met Yvonne Jench, who at the time was the captain of the Advanced Organization, and we fell in love, especially my brother and I. So that led us to join the Sea Org. She talked us into it.
Wow.
So we joined as a band. And so that was the start of my career in the Sea Org. But and we actually had to go to the local ship and do our able-bodied seaman training.
Right.
I became a sailor. And then we would go out and do gigs and promote Scientology. At the time, nobody really knew what the hell Scientology was, so it wasn't an issue.
A forerunner of the Jivases, right?
No, I wouldn't say so.
Okay.
We weren't. That's a whole different ballgame, in my opinion.
All right.
But yeah, we were, in a way, I guess we were. Anyway, that didn't last. It didn't last too long. And what happened is my brother and I were at odds. That's a whole other story. Because I'll interject. Here's one thing that happened as a side note. When we joined Scientology in 1968, my brother is 4 years younger than me. It gave him a big boost. He didn't know who he was as much as I did, but it gave him a boost. And he became more assertive. The exact same thing that what happened to me was the opposite. I started doubting myself more, because in Scientology, they want you to doubt yourself. They want you need help.
Right. So you'd keep on buying courses and auditing.
Exactly. So it shook up everything that I knew. And I became, and then I made the mistake of firing, it was up to me. I was still a leader, firing the lead singer and our manager, I'm the one who procured our manager. He was a good manager named Michael Hunter. He was a local DJ, the program director for one of the biggest rock stations in San Jose. Talk about getting things to come your way.
Yeah.
he was our manager. He was very clear with me. You kick out Larry out of the band and I'm quitting. Now he's the one who got us the record deal too.
Mm.
So I lost, I lost the lead singer, I lost the manager. I was pretty shaken up, but it didn't make any difference. I was a Scientologist and that was it.
Yeah.
So my brother took over leadership pretty quick. I had built the band up and then he took over. And that was hard for me to swallow because in one sense, I was also the creative drive of the band, but now I wasn't the leader anymore.
Yeah.
So we were at odds, my brother and I. And then one day we were playing at the Hollywood Bowl we were living in Los Angeles and we were going to do a Hollywood Bowl gig. I decided to wear engineers overalls, those striped overalls.
Yeah.
My brother didn't think that was a good image. So we came to blows over the fact that he wanted me to change my clothes. So at that point, I said, this is crazy. I'm no longer being productive in this band. I'm leaving. So I basically gave him notice, wrote down everything that I felt I had done. And we were still in the Sea Org. So I just left the band and went over to the newly established Celebrity Center, which was headed up by Yvonne Jench.
Yeah.
So I became a staff. At 6 months, I was staff in establishing Celebrity Center, and I worked directly with Yvonne
Wow.
Jench. So I did that. Then I couldn't stay there because I was a musician. The call of the music was too strong.
Yeah.
And I was working at that point with a wonderful singer-songwriter, Jimmy Spheris, who later went on to record 4 albums and really had a budding career, which again got cut short, in my opinion, by Scientology. So, but anyway, so jump to 1974. Now I'm, out. I'm no longer a Sea Org member.
But no, wait a minute. We didn't get into on the ship though with L. Ron Hubbard.
No, that's 74 is when I went to the ship.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Yeah, that's right.
Now I had quit Celebrity Center, I think, in 1970 with Yvonne's blessing. She let me go. She saw she was wonderful, and I was out there because she saw I was working with a Scientology artist, so it was fine with her. And but I had never really left the Sea Org. For those who had been in, I didn't rat out. I just walked out.
I got it. Boy, that's unusual these days, huh?
Well, completely. And Yvonne didn't say anything. It was just, okay. And so I was just changed my career from staff at Celebrity Center. Now I'm a lead guitar player for Jimmy Spheris and recording musician.
Hmm.
So that went on, and I was, pretty happy with that career. In 1974, I think it was February, a telex, which was the way they communicated in those days, no internet. And a telex came into Celebrity Center from L. Ron Hubbard, and it said, "Send Geoff Levin to the ship," because as far as they were concerned, I was still in the Sea Org.
Right.
Or as far as my friend who was working with Hubbard, they thought I was still in the Sea Org. And that friend was a guy named Dan Arbeck, who you know.
Of course, yeah.
Dan is he's an electrical engineer and an audio engineer, and he was doing all the restoration of L. Ron Hubbard's tapes. Brilliant guy.
Yeah.
To say, and a friend of mine. I actually got him into Scientology. And so he returns a favor by getting Hubbard to get me to the ship because they were doing these bands for Port PR on the ship, on the Apollo ship. It's called the Apollo. And they were having a lot of publicity problems with the ports they were going to. So Hubbard had the idea, well, why don't we've got musicians on board, let's create some bands and send them out to do pro bono work at hospitals, at goodwill events. They needed more musicians. So Dan Arbeck suggested, well, hey, Geoff Levin is a wonderful guitar player and he plays bluegrass as well as rock and roll. And Hubbard was forming a country group on the ship. And I'm not sure of the name. I think it was the Rancheros, but I'm not sure.
It was. Yeah, that wasn't him.
So they needed a good guitar player who knew that music. So the telex comes in. I get a call from Celebrity Center. Come down to Celebrity Center. We have something to show you. They show me the telex. And that, I was like, whoa, they want me? Or Hubbard wants me? And so basically, I was very friendly with one of the messengers who I had met when she was on leave. So we had established kind of a pen pal kind of relationship. So I felt I had a friend there, other than Dan.
Yeah.
And so I was still enamored with that whole concept of the Sea Organ, working with, I was going to work with Ron Hubbard and clear the planet, save the planet. So 1 week, I wrapped up my whole life. I was going to be gone forever on that ship. I got one of my buddies to sell my van. I took just my amplifier, my speaker, my guitar, and the clothes on my back. That was it. And I was going somewhere. I didn't know where it was because it was uber secret. You had to be bonded.
Oh yeah.
I had no idea where I was going until I got my plane ticket. And I think I came into the Canary Islands. I think they were at the time cruising around Portugal and Spain. Oh, it was Portugal, I think.
Right.
It was Lisbon. It might have been Lisbon or another one of that. But it was a place where I could fly in. So I fly in, and it's kind of like a fairy tale. My head was in the clouds.
Yeah.
So when I was on the plane, I wrote a poem to Hubbard, and we pulled into the ship that was, docked.
Right.
It was nighttime now. And the guy this would mean something to some people. This person is still in Scientology, Riggs Eckleberry, had picked me up, and very nice guy. I didn't know him really, and we come up to the ship. It's all lighted, real bright. It's nighttime.
Right.
I go up the gangplank. I get checked in, and sitting in the I can't remember what they call it, but sitting right on the deck is L. Ron Hubbard and the Apollo stars.
Wow.
So I walk right into that.
Oh, that is like a fairy tale.
So having some balls, I just walk right up to him, give him the poem, and say, good to be back, because that was my kind of airy-fairy head, that somehow I had worked with him before.
Yeah.
And that was the start of my short career on the Apollo. So I was treated like a celebrity for, I'd say, about maybe a month and a half. And the Rancheros, or the country group, did not last long. It lasted about 3 performances or 4 performances, because because that music was not popular in Lisbon or Portugal or Spain.
Yeah.
It was just not right. Might have worked for the US,
Yeah.
definitely not those countries. We were getting heckled.
Wow.
Boos and heckling, and some of the sailors from some of the other countries would come in, and these were like from Denmark or Holland or something like that. They were really hip, right?
Yeah.
And they were probably also smoking pot. Anyway, they come in and they would purposely boo us and heckle us. So that group got disbanded, and I was like, okay, what am I going to do now? Hubbard wanted more groups, so we formed a group called the Marineros, and that group was going to do pop music, because he did his little survey and he realized, okay, we want a group that people want to hear. They want the songs they want to hear. So this was going to be a cover band.
Right.
So the bass player was a Class 8 auditor, Michael Maurer. I don't know where he is now, whether he's still in Scientology or not, but he was pretty young. And then we had a drummer by the name of Norman Starkey.
Yeah, of course.
Who had been the captain of the ship. And we had Laurie Noonan, who was our lead singer, and Des Popham on piano for a while, and then John Hanson on piano, I think, as well. One or the other.
Yeah.
And so that was our band.
And of course, you on guitar.
And me on guitar, and I was a music director. So I think the turning point for me was when Hubbard wanted us to do a song. He wanted to write a song. And another person, Amanda Ambrose, who we will get into on this list, because I knew Amanda really well. She was such a dedicated Scientologist and did so many performances for Scientology and pushed it. But anyway, Tony Strawn was her son, and he was in the Sea Org on that ship. So Tony and I were given the task of writing this song that Hubbard wanted done. And it was called We're Going Up While the World Goes Down, something to that effect.
Right.
It got released, you probably know it. It got released by Dougie Fresh on an album.
I was there when he did it.
Yeah.
With the musicians,
And he did the best job he could do of that song.
Oh, yeah.
I think they did as good an arrangement as you could do of the song.
Right.
To me, having come from working with Jimmy Spheres, who was in my opinion, one of the best songwriters I've ever heard, this didn't go over too well with me. But of course, I had the task of doing the song.
Right.
I was not an experienced songwriter. I was a songwriter, but I didn't have anywhere the experience I have now, or I had 10 years later, or whatever. I think technically, if I had had more training and experience, I could have done it, but I didn't. And I had really heavy duty opinions. So I basically, at a certain point, we were starting to do demos, and I didn't know how to do demos either. I wasn't really, we didn't have, instant little recorders that we could kind of do a demo and say, here, Ron, here's what it sounds like.
Yeah.
Now anybody with the iPhone can do a demo.
I know. Yeah.
So we'd have to do a recording on a cassette, and it was a mess. And we'd send it up, and a few things got rejected. And I didn't mind the rejection. It's just that I never believed in the song.
Yeah.
So I finally got to a point where I said, I don't like this song.
Mm.
You can imagine how that went over.
No, that's no. I mean, okay, continue.
So, and it's actually in Janice Grady Gillam's book. She talks about this incident because we talked about it. So it's in her book if you want to read about it. She has her perspective because she was right there.
Yeah.
But the messengers who had were pretty friendly to me, and the messengers were Ron's personal assistants. They didn't look at that as a very good thing. And so all of a sudden I went from, pretty good status to the toilet. And I eventually ended up physically in the toilet. I'll tell you about that. I'll try to get into that. I didn't mean for us to talk so much about this, but it is an interesting story in my opinion. Anyway, I eventually had to apologize to Ron, but he abandoned the song for that time. I don't know whether he actually believed, because he did respect me as a music artist, and maybe I put a damper on it. I don't know.
Yeah.
But at that point now, I was starting to feel pretty weird, and I was also feeling weird about. I was working with. Oh, there was another singer, Robin. We had a male and female singer in this cover band, the Marineros. To me, it was working with a band like that after working with top musicians in the United States.
Yeah.
I just couldn't deal with it.
No, the
They
musicianship
weren't
is not there.
they weren't singers. None of them. They weren't even amateurs. Hubbard had the attitude that anybody can do anything.
Yeah.
If I tell you you can do it, you can do it. You train on it and you do it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you can get by, and I did the best I could with what I had. It was kind of like The Far Side, where the cartoon, the composer, there's an open door and the devil is standing next to the open door, and inside is an orchestra of banjo players.
Right.
And the devil is saying to the conductor, "Here's your new orchestra."
Right.
It was like that
Okay.
for me. And
That's a good analogy. But anyway.
so anyway, I was having more and more trouble following orders, and finally I had disobeyed some order, didn't complete something that I needed to complete, and I was put in doubt, which is a condition that Hubbard made these different conditions of life. And he assigned me the condition of doubt, where do you really want to be here? And Norman Starkey, and I give him credit for this, very, kindly sat me down and said, look, do you want to be the music director of the band? If you don't, then you have one choice. You can go on the rehabilitation project force, called the definition of the RPF, which was the labor force to recondition you, rehabilitation.
Right.
And at that point, I said, I'll go on the RPF. That's how strongly I felt about the music not working for me.
Yeah.
So I went on the RPF. I spent 3 months there, and I got in really good shape. I could crawl up and down the ship just with grabbing a rope. I went up to the crow's nest. I was everywhere. And because inherently I was a leader, I started working up the ranks of the RPF. Now, the conditions at the time, I didn't think anything of the conditions, and people have described the conditions. I wasn't appalled by it. I had to be educated to be appalled by the conditions. The men in the RPF, we slept in the hold. Now, the hold is where you normally store all of whatever the cargo is. It's just a big, huge space.
Yeah.
That's where they put all the sea chests for the crew members. So there was still some space, but it was pretty crowded. They threw mattresses down there, and during the day, when we did our study, we had 3 hours of study. We'd either, if the weather was good, we'd study up on the deck. If it wasn't good, we'd study down in the hold, and we slept in the hold. So there was like 10 or 15 of us on the, or like maybe a dozen men who were all sleeping in the hold. That was it. I think we got a shower, not every day, but we'd get a shower and we wore these black engineer, overalls.
Yeah. Well, what actually happened when you left, though? I wanted to hear that.
Okay, so anyway, I'm on the RPF. I'm still thinking I can get through it, and then it kept gnawing at me. My purpose is as a musician. That's my passion.
I got it.
I love that. And so I realized I probably shouldn't be here, but I didn't say anything. And so basically for 3 months I was on the RPF, and then I started feeling, because it couldn't be them, it was me, that I would be out exchange. I wouldn't be keeping my exchange with Ron if I did the training and then got the auditing that you get. And even though you're not making any money, and when you're on the RPF, you make no money. You're just getting, and the one thing we did on that ship, though, we did eat well. They fed us well. We got the same thing as a crew.
Oh, that's different. Yeah.
It's different. It was not the same out in LA. So, but anyway, so this is in my mind the whole time. I'm going, this isn't going to work, but I didn't have the courage to just say, I want out of here.
Yeah.
Didn't have the courage. So about 3 months into this, just 2 or 3 people jumped ship. They actually jumped ship.
Whoa.
And they had your passports. So if you jump ship, you really don't want to be there. So Hubbard had a bright idea. He thought, there must be something going on with some of our staff. He sent his personal PR person to go around to every single staff member on the ship and ask them the question, do you want to be here? Laurel Watson was the person. And so one night, or all day, she was going around, and they hit the RPF by the nighttime. She hit the RPF.
Right.
She sat me down. We just went in. You need to talk to Laurel Watson. I'm going, what the hell's going on? Because I wasn't even supposed to talk to anybody. Nobody on the ship talked to me except other RPF members. And she sits me down, and she's real brief. She just said, do you want to be here? Boom. Okay, here's your chance, dude. So I basically said no. That was it. Thank you. No explanation, just thank you. Went back to bed because I think she had rousted me out of bed. 2 o'clock in the morning, I get woken up by, I think, Alex Sabersky, who was also on the RPF, and he had been a big time famous auditor, but he was now on the RPF. He wakes me up and says something. He said, pack your things, you're leaving. The survey was completed. Ron didn't waste any time. Every person who said no was on the deck that morning, getting ready to go on a plane.
Wow.
So here's the deal. Nobody wished me goodbye. The ethics officer, who was, kind of the, whatever you want to call him, the Justice Department, or the cop.
Yeah.
Was on deck with us. Those people who didn't have airfare, he gave them money and said, you're going to have to pay this back. I had enough money, so I bought my own ticket. And he warned us all. He says, you are bonded. You reveal where the ship is, and we will come after you.
Yeah.
And so we all knew that. That's about all he said.
Huh.
And then I got an order. Every day there was a one sheet that was sent out called the orders of the day.
Right.
And Ron would say things to the crew. he'd give interesting items and tidbits and whatever. It was what's going on the ship, like a little newsletter. I have the newsletter where he talks about, he names every person who left, because he wanted the crew to know that these, even the guys on the RPF, I love them all. They're not, you're not responsible for any problems. These are the people who said they did not want to be on the ship.
Mm.
That's about what he said. I'm sorry, I should have brought I have it, and I should have, but in essence, he said, okay, goodbye. I wish you well, and you guys screwed up.
Wow.
You lost your opportunity. That was the goodbye. That was it.
Well, I tell you, we are at the witching hour, and I'm going to have to pull the plug. But I will tell you something. This has been very, very interesting, and that cleared up a story that Tommy had told me. It's not the way he explained it, so I'm glad you cleared
There's
it up.
only one person who was in the band who talked to me.
Really?
When I was on the ship, when I was on the RPF.
Wow.
Charlie Rush.
Charlie Rush. And which listen, we literally have to
well, why don't we do another one, and we can cover the whole thing we were going to cover, because I didn't mean to get,
well, no, wait a minute. Listen, not only how about if we do it, I insist that we do it. I mean, we can't let people hanging, because you got to get into this about these various musicians who have.
That was my whole. Yes.
No, I'll tell you. We'll set up a time after we get off the air, and we're absolutely going to get you back. With your, of course, you want to come back, so there's no problem with that.
Yeah. No, I can work it out. Schedule-wise.
Fabulous. Wait, my producer wants to say something.
So you had 2 super chats real quick. You had one from Chris Kenotiz for $5. He said, Ron, good morning. What happens to Scientology as a whole when David dies?
Wow.
That's a big question.
Well,
that's a big one.
That is not something I can take up and answer within the time we have here, but I'm going to give you a short answer. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I could speculate just like anybody can, and I have every right to speculate, seeing as who I am. I'm his father, but I actually don't know. Maybe I'll bring it up in some future program.
Yeah. And we did talk about it in some past episodes too, but
but
it's always a big question.
It'll be just my speculations on it, though. But thank you for that question.
And then Danielle Demchek just donated $1, so thank you, Danielle.
Oh, thank you, Danielle.
And that's it.
Okay, so all of you who have watched this program, as I mentioned at the beginning, we had 2 new patrons. I invite you to become a Patreon, and it helps us tremendously. Just go onto my website, therealronmiscavige.com, and it'll show you how to join. Meanwhile, I'm going to have Geoff back, absolutely, and we'll announce it, and I'll go over it with him as soon as I pull the plug on this. So for Life After Scientology, I'm Ron Miscavige, and thank you for watching. See you on the next episode. Bye-bye now.